feel underdressed.
Hi.
This isn't a foolproof system yet.
Look, we went all out for me specifically. I painted my nails red and sparkly.
We need to start doing, like, in the beginning.
Like, what is it with open your mouth and then make your eyes look sexy and then look like you see a baby ducky. It's like
Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show, your twice weekly pop culture podcast where we talk about movies, TV, music, and more. As always, this is a spoiler show, so you have been warned. We might do a minute or two without spoilers, but on today's episode, we're talking about Cruella.
Can't you guess?
It's the 2021 Disney. Now, this is a reimagining.
Yes.
That is one of...
Although, I don't know.
The first of many gripes I have. People are insisting it's a prequel.
This says a live-action prequel film following a young Cruella de Vil.
It's not.
It's definitely not.
It's not.
There are things in this movie that...
This movie takes place in the 70s. It's not a prequel.
Well, sure. But there's plot points in this movie that directly negate character work from all the Dalmatians movies.
Well, and I prefer that. I had very strong opinions on this movie, and right out of the gate, I didn't care for it.
Same.
It is getting a very positive reception. So if you're the kind of person who loved this movie, you might not want to watch us just shit on it, because I don't like doing that. And
yeah, if you want to know why,
well,
I didn't like it.
I think that there are plenty of people, particularly young people out there, who will love this movie.
Sure.
I think that there is a generation of like kooky girls and gays who are 10 to 13 years old who this is going to be like seeing daylight for the first time. And I'm happy for them in that regard, and for serving that purpose. I think this is fine. I could even go as far as to say good.
Sure.
However. Well, and the other thing is I wanted to do an intro and we didn't get around to it, but I was weirdly positive on this the entire pre-pro. Everyone, as usual, really let it have it. And I'm so over the hot takes on the Disney live action stuff because it's just sort of like, it's just the thing. It's not new. It's not, they don't care. They're not going to stop.
Yeah. Those things are true.
It's very complaining about the Kardashians, like in 2018, and it's like, I mean, we're 10 years into this siege. They've won.
Yeah, they're there.
But no, I was weirdly positive on this, and then it was twofold. We got to the theater, and it was like almost sacred because this is the first time we were in a theater in like 14 months.
Yeah.
And the movie started, and I was just like, not even 5 minutes in, and I was like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, it started even sooner than that because we were sitting down for dinner, and I was like, oh, this movie's 2 hours and 15 minutes long. And you were like, what the fuck for? Which I cannot abide that. There's no excuse. Absolutely no excuse for this movie to be that long. An hour and 40 minutes, tops. That's it. So it's easily like 45 minutes too long.
I did want to acknowledge you are dressed like a crazy person.
Look.
So our friend Rachel has moved down, and we now have a professional makeup artist on hand. So
you're welcome.
We will link to her
at Ray Nut on all social media. She also has a YouTube channel. We can put the link in the description below.
She's like a spider waiting for the kill. Look out for Cruella de Vil.
So follow her, as you said, at Ray Nut, and you will probably be seeing more theatrics to this of this extent.
My makeup game is about to skyrocket, if that's what you're here for.
But okay, so back to Cruella.
The thing that I will say that I liked the most is how hard both the Emmas went for it. I don't necessarily think that it was in the right way for either of them, but they were really going for something with their performances. So in that sense, watching them perform this movie was at least not boring. But that being said, I still didn't care at all about any plot point that happened. They like really whisper at a gentle romance between Jasper and Cruella. Also, actually, I literally just remembered my biggest issue. Cruella de Vil is apparently like a dissociative personality disorder.
So they did patented modern Disney.
Yeah.
Where
it's too much.
But it was also it was half of too many things.
Yeah.
They did not drive anything home.
Completely.
And I found this to be so vacant.
Yeah.
And it's fine for like, again, for some people, there are going to be people who love this, and I'm not trying to take that away from them. But this is the kind of movie where it's like the people who love this movie loved it before they even saw it. Like
Sure.
they loved the idea of like a quasi-villainous fashion, like blah, blah, blah.
But again, that's not the thing that
because it's not in the movie. Like that was the thing that I couldn't escape is on 3 separate occasions there were things happening in the movie and I was like, why?
Yeah. Well,
why? Who is Cruella? Why is this
100%.
happening?
100%. And that's the thing that's so like annoying to me is it's like, first of all, she's not a villain. She's the victim of this piece. And then you introduce another character that is somehow even more villainous than the original Cruella de Vil in order to turn her into a villain. And then it doesn't end up working anyway. And it's just like,
it's the Maleficent thing
why
again.
Why are we doing that? Yeah, like you have to make the king more evil in order to make Maleficent seem sympathetic. And it's like,
but even still, it's the suggestion of evil, and it really only lasts for 1 or 2 scenes.
Right.
And it's like,
and I guess that also goes to where does human murder versus dog murder fall on your morality spectrum? But then there's also, and this is not a real complaint for me, but then there is also no dog murder in, like, she has multiple dogs.
Well, okay, that's not a complaint. That was a complaint for a lot of people, and it's not a complaint for me.
It's not really for me either.
I loved the reframing of the narrative because for me, it's not so much that Cruella kills dogs is the point. It's the connection of Cruella and the Dalmatians,
Sure.
and I like the reclamation of it because they acknowledged it all the way up to and including a Dalmatian coat.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it does sort of beg the question of where she got it.
Well, you could buy Dalmatian fabric.
I mean, I suppose, but
in that instance, my issue was then the Baroness was like, she killed my dogs and made a coat. I was like, there's no indication she killed your dogs.
And there's a lot of leaps like that.
Yeah. And then we find out she very demonstrably did not kill the Dalmatians.
Mm-hmm. But it's like, I like that notion of like 2 examples of it is the Hulu TV show The Great,
Sure.
or Sophia Coppola's Marie Antoinette, where it's like these wicked women, you know, are maligned by history and only remembered for like a handful of slanderous things said about them. And so I like the notion that like, oh, Cruella the dog killer was just some sort of relic left over from like a smear campaign.
Okay.
But they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't hit that hard enough. And then also
they didn't hit it at all. Emma Thompson says it like Soto voice to herself at the top of the stairs.
Well, no, they cut that because like we'll get to it. But the gay friend, what was his name?
Artie. Rusty.
Like they had a tete-a-tete about like, oh, you know, you killed the dogs. Or there were so many times where someone like when she's at like the Indian place getting food and he was like celebrating, and it's like, why would he ever say that to her? Like there were so many times where the movie, it's like the story. This sounds so stupid. I was about to say. I was gonna say it was like they thought of the story first and then mashed everything around it, and it's like that's how storytelling works. But my point is,
not
it's like
necessarily though. It's the thing that we talk about where it's like, especially like most recently, like Zack Snyder stuff, where it's like I can tell that he was like, I want this visual of
it was reverse engineered.
Yeah, it's like I want the visual of a zombie tiger will make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, and that was a really, the zombie tiger worked. I'm just saying. But that's the thing where it's like you're like, I want this shot and I don't care what it takes to make it. We'll make it happen. And no matter how it
ends up feeling contrived or lazy or like there's just that sense of like, while Disney was producing this, they were like, it's good enough.
Yeah.
Make it like, and that's where we're at is it's like, sure that's fine sometimes, but that is Disney's entire brand
Right now.
outside of the animated
Pixar
princess movies.
Yeah, well, and I mean, even some of that,
It's good enough, it'll work. Like they'll and it's disrespectful. It's
to the children and the audience, I think. It's way disrespectful to the kids. But who was it what's his name? CJ the X or something?
He's a YouTube person.
Oh my God. He's, first of all, amazing. We can link to him too. He's got really excellent video essays, but he was talking about Tangled and he was like, you need to have respect for the child audience.
Children deserve good
stories
art.
And the respect of the creators. And I could not agree with anything more because it's like that's the kind of stuff that I like so much about old Disney, where it's like, I like the, all of the creepier stuff. I like that there was that, like, the creepy lady in The Rescuers Down Under and stuff like that. It's just like, that might have been Don Bluth, but regardless.
No, it's Disney.
Is it? I like all of the stuff that they absolutely wouldn't touch today, where it's like, again, I can't stress enough how much I didn't want to watch her kill puppies in this movie. That being said, that's sort of what makes Cruella an interesting villain, is that she's doing something, she wants so badly to do something that's truly horrific. And this is just like, I want my necklace back.
Well, she was so, oh God, I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it. She was so like, was so entitled, and it was very tell and not show. And I mean, granted, there was plenty of showing.
Yeah.
But we weren't watching the journey. They were just like, oh, she's so creative and misunderstood. And so we just watched kids be mean to her.
Yeah.
But there was no reason. And I thought the hair was so stupid.
Then they never explained it,
How was she? Well, you were in the bathroom. Okay. She was just born with it.
So there's no explanation.
No. So sure. They acknowledged it, is my point. They didn't explain it. They acknowledged it.
Is it because her mother, like...
I kept waiting for the turban or the wig to come off and the Baroness, spoilers, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And the Baroness to have black and white hair.
Sure.
That's why I kept waiting.
Yeah.
But no. So she just organically had that hair, and she was weird and difficult, and other kids were mean to her, and she was so talented and broke the rules. And it was just like, but we never
I don't
really
know. She like sewed some buttons on her school blazer.
Or refused to follow the directions in the pattern. And it's like, believe me, I am a fan of
coloring outside the lines.
Paving your own way. But I mean, sometimes you have to start somewhere.
You need a base education, and then you can fuck around.
Like I said, she was really entitled. She didn't listen. And sure, so we do find out later that the Baroness did in fact kill her mother. But it's like the entire first chunk of the movie, she thinks she did it because she didn't follow the simplest instructions after already complicating things beyond.
But I do hate that trope too, where it's like she was meters away from her mother, so far away from her mother, and the dogs chased her off the cliff essentially, and she fell off the cliff. So I'm just like, sure, you got out of the car like you weren't supposed to, but she just kept saying, I murdered my mother. And I'm just like, no.
And there's this,
words have meanings.
There's this weird contrivance with a fountain where it's like, she points to a picture of the fountain in a book. And she's like, literally, she was like, I can't wait for this to mean something to me.
Yeah.
And then her mother dies. And so she decides that the fountain is where her mother is. So she keeps going back to this fountain and talking to it.
It's in Regent's Park. It's like, yeah.
It was really strange.
Yeah.
It expected the audience to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And for me, with something like this, I'm like, no, you need to prove to me that you deserve to exist.
No, 100%.
It's like you need to
100% because look,
justify why we're doing this.
Totally, because we already have two animated movies with Cruella de Vil about
and 2 live action.
Well, and a live action movie with Glenn Close. She's in 2 of them?
102 Dalmatians.
They did both live action? Okay, I didn't remember that.
Because the better dress is in the second one.
Okay. So I'm just saying, we already have a like remarkably good animated performance and a like iconic live action performance by one of the greatest actresses to ever live. I love Emma Stone. I love her so much. This is not her wheelhouse.
I didn't think she was good. And everybody's I'm prepared to be alone.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about how amazing she was.
It was not my favorite Emma Stone performance ever. I wouldn't even put it in the top 5 probably. And again, I love her so much. I think she deserves her Oscar. I think she deserves everything she's ever had. It does not compare in any capacity to the unhinged nature of Glenn Close's performance. I mean, there's just no question. And you're totally right. It's like, I need you to have, like, what is the point of this? You show your
prove
work.
that this is,
and they just didn't.
It was so shallow.
Yeah.
And it's also apparently PG-13, which, like, that's what Rachel and I were discussing earlier when you, like, came out and were like, what are you talking about? And it was like, it was so toothless. And, well, except for there was a handful of strange flourishes, like one of the many CG dogs in the movie, like goes like sliding through fire, and it's like fine, but it's shocking. It's a shocking visual.
It's very close to catching on fire.
And there's just like a handful of moments like that where you're like, oh God, this got weird.
Yeah.
But it still feels, like I said, toothless. And this is what we were talking about, where, again, I cannot with fucking Disney, because it's like some of the grossest shit I have ever seen is in the PG-13 Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Yeah.
But yet we can't see Daryl Hannah's butt for like 3 seconds in Splash. And I'm like, that's just harmless. That's harmless coming of age, like, blah, blah, blah. But and to Emma Stone's performance, I am a huge, it was at first sight, I was like, she is phenomenal. There is
since Superbad,
there is this strange, just absolute abomination of a movie called Movie 43. It is so bad. It is so unfunny.
Is she in that?
It is so uninteresting, except for 2 parts. The first of which is this bizarre scene with her and Kieran Culkin. And
my favorite Culkin.
Their utter commitment
to the absurdity.
Terrible. It's not even absurd. It's just bad. But their utter commitment to the terrible material elicits joy.
I can't believe you sucked off that hobo for magic bean.
He was a wizard, Neil.
Shh. I want to be on you. In you. I want to be all over your chin.
She's crying real tears. And it's like, she just sort of walks around this movie stating that she's bad and mad and a little bit rad. And it's like, her friendship with
Horace and Jasper.
No, Artie.
Oh, Artie.
There's
no there.
I was offended.
Yeah.
And I don't get easily offended, but it's the GBF thing where, like, she, like, walks into his store like she owns it, and he's like, you're fabulous. And she was like, you should see me when I'm bad. And it's like, they're just like, and it, like, happens 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
There's nothing there.
It's also, like, this is where you chose to finally make an actually recognizably gay character, and then you did this.
That's actually, I'm gonna break with you. That's the only thing about it that I liked, is that it was that I loved that there wasn't a button on it. I loved that he was just identifiably gay.
Yeah, I don't need there to be a button on it, but I'm like, but then you made him the shallowest character with the shallowest relationship with the main character. Are you out of your mind?
And that's what I mean, where I was like, it just gives with one hand and takes with the other, because it was like, it was good representation in that it wasn't preachy or blah blah blah, but also it was like, that's the single least thing that children need to be taking from these relationships, is that gay best friends are accessories for whenever you need them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how she treated everybody in her life. That's how she treated, like, Jasper and Horace, too.
So I actually really liked Jasper and Horace. They were one of the things that...
Okay, first of all, Joel Fry is a straight piece, in my opinion, the one that played Jasper. And then Paul Walter Hauser is amazing. He was in I, Tonya. He got, like, he was like in the stratosphere immediately. And I'm just like,
her and Jasper have like a whisper of like a romance.
oh, it was so frustrating because like, why would he ever like her?
And again, but they never truly showed, like there was, and I mean, I hear what I'm saying, but there was no sex.
Yeah.
There was no like passion. And also she really wasn't that, I mean, she was a jerk,
But it also,
but she wasn't bad.
she also seemed like she couldn't care less about being into him. So it was also all one-sided. And look, I could have more easily justified the 2 hour and 15-minute runtime had we not skipped 10 full years of her relationship with them, because there was at no point was there like a, you know, like a montage of them growing up and doing bigger and bigger grifts and stuff.
I hated the kids.
Yeah, no, not great.
When it cut to Emma Stone with that dog, and I was like, how old is that dog?
Okay, that is another big issue that I have is like, she is like maybe like 12 when the movie starts. Maybe. I don't remember if they said an age or not, but then she says 10 years passed, and I was like, Emma Stone is well into her 30s at this point. And I was like, God love her and congratulations. But she was like max meant to be like 23 for the majority of the
that makes
runtime
some of her
this movie.
behavior make more sense.
That she's so young. These are adult men. And they were the kids were all the like roughly the same age.
I said, I was like, this was like if Katie Keene had a budget.
Which is like faint praise.
So on that note, that the movie was gorgeous.
Oh my God.
They put in
the work.
They understood the assignment.
Yeah.
There were so many costumes
Yep.
because I got really kind of peeved with the marketing where I was like, they're showing us too much. And granted, I do think I saw most everything in the marketing, but I didn't feel robbed of the experience in the theater. There's a showpiece dress that is very good with a very good reveal.
Mm-hmm.
You saw it coming completely. I subconsciously saw it coming because I was like I didn't want to, but I was like, oh, that's crazy. I was like, that's like in Snow White and the Huntsman when Ravenna is wearing all those dresses made out of like beetle shells and stuff.
I just literally, I was like, that's bait. Kind of. I know what that is.
Each of them, both Emmas, had a wealth
so many
of costume changes.
Even like Estella's work clothes, she was wearing demonstrably different clothes in every scene.
I liked Estella. I was sort of, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I understand this is a Disney movie, but I was like, no, I wanted a more sort of like psychological, well, I wanted The Devil Wears Prada. And this was the broad strokes of that with none of the, it also, there's like 2 or 3 moments in the movie where it's funny. And it made me realize how unfunny the rest of it, like how necessary
much more
that
it should have been funny.
Like there's a scene where Emma Thompson, the Baroness, tases a maid.
Oh my God.
And
she does it to the like actual security.
The guy has the taser.
First,
he's like, we'll get her with this. And she's like, oh, let me see that. And she's like, Gzz. And she's like, oh, that's delightful. And she just starts tasing like.
And she's like, oh, I could do that all day. And then she hucks it back at the guy. And I was like,
there's stuff like that I was like, that would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
And also going back to like the fashion of it all, the sets, the like people,
especially
the workshop,
the manor house was, that staircase was great.
I had things to look at. And they were solid. They were a little bit, fashion 101. It was very, as Rachel pointed out, very Alexander McQueen.
Sure.
Very.
Also like 60s Dior and Chanel.
Westwood.
Which is like, the Vivienne Westwood was pissing Rachel off. She was like, I wonder if Vivienne Westwood is mad that they just wholesale stole all her shit. And to a certain point, yes. Also, there's only so much peplum I can take. And there was like a buttload of peplum in this movie. And I was like, I guess.
And red, black, and white.
Yeah. Huh?
The music.
Oh my God.
Relentless.
Did you guys know that the Beatles and the Rolling Stones made music in the 70s?
It was relentless.
It was relentless.
I was like a moment's piece.
Yeah.
Like my kingdom I don't think we were 5 minutes without a needle drop
No.
until an hour and 50 minutes into the movie when suddenly the score showed up.
Yeah, which was pretty good for those couple of minutes.
And that's a weird thing where it was like, I was genuinely hating the movie for most of it. And weirdly, like, the end, I got interested.
I guess. You know what I really don't like, though? It's not that I disliked the voiceover, but I disliked the, like,
I hated the
framing of the voiceover, because you get to the end and it's like, spoilers again, she's speaking at the funeral for Estella, and she just was like, and she's like telling the story to the gravestone, because like no one else is there except for the people who went through it with her. So I'm like, what's the point of this? The framing device of that was terrible.
She also just did not apologize to them. She treated them terribly.
She said sorry one time, but it was
Jasper.
Yeah, but it was like barely. And it was literally, you could tell that it was only so that he would keep helping her.
What precisely was she doing? Because it was like, is she a vigilante? Like, is she...
I don't know. I think my favorite thing was that Will described it as a mix between Joker and the Phantom Thread.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like a sort of tortured genius who then is just also like a dick. And like, I guess vigilante, but it was like, the thing about it was literally the point of it was, I want to get this necklace back because she stole my mother's necklace.
But there was also a lot of assumptions where it was like, why are you so sure that you were the victim? I mean, I understand your perspective of it, but the people's inability to look inward is really chapping my ass. And it's like, I
Could you maybe take some of your own shit on board and not like put that on all of the people around you? Because that is what she was doing the whole time. She was like, well, at first she was like, I killed my mother. And then she was like, well, she killed my mother. And I'm just like, again, you're assuming a lot of this stuff. And it was like, she killed my mother and stole my necklace. That's my necklace. And I'm like, it could have been hers.
And I was like, why are you so certain this is your necklace?
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, it's very incongruous to your whole
deal. And then that again was so bizarrely the only point, like her only forward trajectory was getting this necklace back. But I was like, how are you getting the necklace back? By like basically just making fun of the Baroness in public a lot. And like just upstaging her and making fun of her in public. What are we doing here?
There's no through line. There's no actual plot.
And meanwhile, Estella is still actively, because they're two people, so Estella is still
I was going to say, did you finish? You started to hit on the like...
I just hated it.
Okay.
I just like... There's never been any indication that Cruella DeVille has dissociative personality disorder. So I was sort of like, why did you have like what it amounts to a psychotic break because of old trauma? Like you just now had this full psychotic break because of 10-year-old
I'm also
trauma.
just afraid that I'm so afraid that the message from this is going to be that if something bad has happened to you, you're allowed to be a jerk.
A total asshole all the time.
And people don't love you if they don't forego any and all boundaries.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
I didn't. I'm sorry.
It was not
because people really like. Well, I think people like pretty things, which usually works for me. Why
people? Okay, here's what I think is. I think that people are very forgiving of Disney because they do every once in a while pull it out, but then also there are so many people who are like, you're like, what's a thing I should know about you? And they're like, Disney. Like, I like Disney. And like, that's the only thing. And I feel like those people will just go see the stuff and they love it because it doesn't mean anything more than it was a Disney movie, so I love it automatically. Meanwhile,
well, also,
I don't know. I just like, I think I have we both have broader tastes than that. And so it's like, I'd rather watch Crimson Peak.
Well, and, yeah, also, and I'm going to say something.
And I could wear this for that too.
I'm going to say something very self-serving, so tune away or roll your eyes now, get it over with, whatever. But I think it blows people's minds that something that they already know, like if they already know a story, that it can be retold a different way.
Oh, sure.
It's the Once Upon a Time conundrum where they're like, the way that they're like, but Aladdin is Ariel's father. And I'm like,
Just
why
like,
would that
bitch,
ever,
where?
why would that ever be the thing?
Yeah.
And so I think like just the novelty of the fact that it's like, it's the cartoon, but it's live. I think that, or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, and again, for me, very self-serving for me, it's like, I spent 10 years of my life doing buy fairy tale on Amazon.com. If you want to see reworked fairy tale characters and tropes put together in a modern fantasy, fashion, adventure, like extravaganza. And so
Where the plot points make sense in
I
context.
I come into this with a high bar where I'm like, justify, because I swear to God, to bring up Once Upon a Time again, Victoria Smurfett, I think she was a better Cruella.
Yeah.
I think Once Upon a Time's take on Cruella was far more interesting than this.
I agree.
The fact that she was like a toxic socialite that the storyteller fell in love with and wrote into his story. Because that was always Will's issue, where he was like, what does this flapper have to do with fairy tales? And I was like, she's incongruous
It actually makes
within the
sense.
show. I was like, it's part of the story.
So that brings me to probably one of my biggest issues with these Disney live action remakes in general, which is the reason I think that the only two that have worked for me, and really mostly the one being Cinderella, but also The Jungle Book, is because they're not littered with recognizable faces. You know what I mean? Like,
Actors or characters? Okay.
No, they're obviously recognizable characters, but the thing for me is that, you know, you had to, I mean, I know Game of Thrones was like the biggest show in the whole universe for a while, but Richard Madden was not a humongous part of that, and Lily James had really not had a breakout yet. That movie is exquisitely done.
Well, it also was the essence of the story.
Sure, but they also then took a breakneck turn into casting the biggest names available in all of these live action things. So now this is not just a Cruella de Vil movie, which we could have done with a lower key actress. You know, you said Katie Keene earlier. Where is Lucy Hale? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not actually suggesting that. I'm just saying somebody way more low key who's not like a huge deal. But now, not only is this a Cruella de Vil movie, this is a starring vehicle that has to do a certain amount of stuff because Emma Thompson and Emma Stone are in this movie. And that is sort of like, it puts too much pressure on it. And then I think it ends up being like a movie made by committee, where it's like you're rendering it all totally sexless and like with like toothless, like you said. And it's just like a blob of red and white and, you know, black crap. And it's just very frustrating.
To hit home, I do like what they ended up doing with the Dalmatians, especially the end of her walking through the house with the Dalmatians and stuff.
It could have been cool if at any point the Dalmatians were real dogs. I don't believe there were real Dalmatians.
There was once or twice. Also, and I'm not going to get into it, but the Anita and
hate it. No. It's bad.
It felt hollow.
I understand what you mean, because
and that's not like, I'm not criticizing the actress or the performance or anything. It felt like it felt like a stunt. It didn't feel organic. It didn't feel
sure. So like basically Kirby Howell-Baptiste plays Anita Darling, and she essentially is Stella's friend from boarding school.
Which did they have one scene where they recognized each other?
I think they did.
I went to the bathroom.
They just didn't
in the middle.
They didn't put like a point on it, but she was like, yeah, Estella, like whatever. And so they like did have a scene. Basically, it was sort of like Spider-Man and J. Jonah Jameson kind of thing, where it was like, oh, I know who you are. The issue that I have is that I get what you're saying about this being a reimagining, but then it's like, then at the end they set it up like Cruella de Vil gave Anita and Roger their Dalmatians so that at some point she could harvest the skins from their puppies. And it's just like, what a long con.
That's the part that I don't think that is what this movie is
I know, but
implying.
That does happen at the end. She gives them both a puppy.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Maybe we'll get a Maleficent 2 where the inevitable sequel will weirdly retroactively earn the entire thing's existence and also be the proper movie.
Yeah, right, maybe.
Maleficent 2 was a better Sleeping Beauty movie than the first Maleficent was.
That's true. That's true.
So
yeah, I don't know.
Thanks, I hate it.
Yep.
There was just so many. She just had such like a girl boss. Like, ugh.
Yeah, no, it was not great. All right, well, I mean, if you're vaccinated, you can go to the theater and see Cruella, and if you're not vaccinated and you don't want to go out, you can pay money
Spend
for it on
$30 full dollars.
Disney Plus and then just have it forever. Yeah, I mean, if you want it, I want you to have it. So please to enjoy, but not for us. So yeah, we're done now. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at So I'm Watching, or Instagram at So I'm Watching the Show. As mentioned, we will put all of Rachel's stuff in the description. And then, yeah, you can follow along on our website, soimwatching.com, which links out to everything, including Fairy Tale, which is much better plotted than this movie. And our Patreon, which we're currently using like a tip jar, but we would love to invite you to check it out. We do have some backlogs of stuff that you can watch on that. And then, yeah, just rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or YouTube or wherever. And that's it for us.
Bye.